place where we cut through the noise and get real about politics, culture, and the world around us. Today, we tackle a tough question. Is rhetoric from the left fueling the very violence they claim to oppose? The answer might surprise you or confirm what you've been feeling for a very long time. Today, we're going deep, exploring how language turns into action, why so many incidents seem connected to the same ideological source, and what this means for a society that claims to value free speech and tolerance. Buckle up. This one is going to make some people incredibly uncomfortable. Words shape reality. They are more than just sound waves. They create mental images, assign blame, and tell us who to fear and who to hate. When political leaders, media personalities, and activists consistently use phrases like threat to democracy, fascists, domestic terrorists, Nazis to describe their political opponents, it primes their audience to see these opponents not as neighbors, but as enemies. It is interesting how the left labels anyone that's conservative a Nazi, especially when historically the Nazis in Germany prior to and during World War II were members of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or National Socialist for short. It's very intriguing how they connect that to anyone that's center right. So fascist, who is a fascist? The person willing to engage in dialogue with ideological opponents, or the person trying to shut down that dialogue? The answer seems fairly clear to me, but you decide. History shows that every major outbreak of political violence, from the French Revolution's reign of terror to more recent street riots, was preceded by a steady drumbeat of language that painted one group as a threat that must be stopped by any means necessary. Look around. Political violence from the left is often excused as mostly peaceful. Property damage assaults, even attempted assassinations, get downplayed because the narrative says the perpetrators were on the right side of history. This double standard emboldens radicals. If they believe they will not be held accountable, or worse, that they will be celebrated, they push further, from campus shoutdowns to firebombing pregnancy centers. We've watched as aggressive rhetoric, resist, fight like hell, there is no peace, becomes a permission for real-world violence. Consider a few case study examples. Summer of 2020 riots. Politicians and pundits excused billions in damage as the language of the unheard. Justice Brett Kavanaugh's assassination attempt, preceded by weeks of rhetoric calling the Supreme Court illegitimate and a danger to women. Harassment of officials at restaurants and homes, normalized after calls to get in their faces and push back. And then recently, Wednesday, 10 September, the assassination of Charlie Kirk in Utah. TikTokers cheering the death of Kirk and the mainstream news more or less blaming everything but rhetoric from the left. These weren't fringe bloggers that were, with this rhetoric. These were elected officials and mainstream commentators telling their base that confrontation was righteous, even necessary. Social psychology tells us that when authority figures repeat charged language, they lower the mental barriers people have against violence. When a politician says, our democracy is under attack, some hear it metaphorically, but for the hyper-partisan or mentally unstable, it sounds like a literal call to arms. This is why rhetoric matters. It doesn't just inform, it activates. So let's talk about the media's role in this whole thing. Mainstream media magnifies the effect. Instead of cooling things down, they amplify outrage, repeat inflammatory sound bites, and turn every policy disagreement into a fight for the nation's soul. The result, viewers are kept in a state of constant panic, convinced that if they don't act now, their rights, their freedoms, and their very existence will vanish. It's a perfect recipe for radicalization. Ironically, many of the same voices who preach tolerance are the first to justify hostility when their side feels threatened. Violence is never framed as violence. It's called an uprising, resistance, or defense. Yet similar actions occur on the right. The media uses words like insurrection, domestic terror. This hypocrisy breeds resentment and erodes trust, which only pushes society closer to more conflict. Consequences we're already seeing, there's many, but some of the ones we are seeing are more political assassinations and threats against officials, more street level clashes, more censorship disguised as safety measures. If left unchecked, this cycle of rhetoric and retaliation leads to one thing: escalation. Once society accepts that violence is an acceptable tool for achieving political goals, there's no going back easily. So, how do we break the cycle of stupid rhetoric that we hear from these TikTokers, Instagrammers, the mainstream news, or anybody else? Here's where we get real. Sign up to call out the left's rhetoric. We have to demand better. We need leaders who reject dehumanizing language, media outlets that value truth over outrage clicks, and everyday citizens willing to say enough. Enough of this BS. Violence begets violence. If we want to live in a country where disagreements stay verbal, we have to insist that all sides keep their rhetoric responsible. So, here are my closing thoughts on today's topic. The left loves to talk about words matter. They're right, words do matter, but that means their words matter too. If you tell people day after day that they are in a war for survival, don't be surprised when someone picks up a weapon. We have a choice: turn down the heat, stop dehumanizing each other, and let ideas compete without intimidation, or keep stoking the fire until it burns everything down. The assassination of Charlie Kirk is a horrific reminder that the left is based on nothing other than terror, violence, and aggression. So what were Charlie Kirk's supposed crimes that warranted his assassination by the left? Let's examine Kirk's stated core principles that he oftentimes talked about during his college visits. And you can decide if it was worth his life. Kirk was a man of faith. He believed in the saving grace of Yeshua, also known as Jesus, and was not ashamed to talk about his Lord and Savior. It doesn't matter if you personally believe in God or don't believe in God at all, but I respect the man willing to talk about his faith, publicly and unafraid. Kirk was also a conservative politically and believed in the following: limited government, individual liberty and personal responsibility. He believed in free market economics, constitutionalism, and limited government and rule of law. Traditional values, support with family, faith, and community. He believed in equality of opportunity, not equal outcomes. And Kirk believed in the right to life, and that includes babies in the womb. Yep, Kirk definitely sounded like a monster, right? By their fruits you shall know them, and he doesn't sound like a monster to me. In my opinion, Kirk was not a monster. He was a man willing to engage in debate with anyone. I've watched his college campus debate videos, and my impression was he was a highly intelligent, patient man that showed respect and civility, even in the face of aggressive leftists. Kirk didn't spread hate speech, just speech the left hated. So I'm going to cut it down to brass tacks, why he was killed for his speech. He was killed because the left disagreed with his core principles. So back to what I stated earlier about who is a fascist. This is probably the most popular phrase the left uses to shut people up. You're a fascist, 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 or Nazi. Just call someone nonstop a fascist or a Nazi, and people tend to leave the situation. Nobody likes confrontation like that when it's ridiculous. So who is a fascist? The man talking to people, explaining and debating his opinions, or the man that stops the man from talking? It should be fairly clear to a common sense person who the fascist is in that example. So why is the left so damn violent? Violence is built into the very foundations of leftist ideology. Marx himself fantasized in print over the apocalyptic events that would accompany the revolution of the proletariat. Leftists simply cannot attain their goals without bloodshed. They can't so much as win an argument or prevail in a debate without threats and menacing behavior. They not only settle for it, they revel in it. Anyone doubting this can take a look at all the dancing and laughing memes and emojis that greeted Kirk's assassination, or the victim blaming from the MSNBC and CNN, or other like-minded news sources. Left has been conditioned to know their camp will suffer no real consequences when their violent worldview creates assassins who target conservatives. They've watched Republicans cave on every front, from culture to speech, elections, and even physical violence. Just this week, a U.S. senator from the political left stated this: "We are in a war right now to save this country. And so you have to be willing to do whatever is necessary in order to save this country." Save this country from what? Prosperity? These people actually believe the country is falling apart somehow. This is only one example of the type of rhetoric that's spewed daily by the left. So what is the answer? Conservatives must not give expression to fears, however well-grounded they may be. The entire network that subsidizes this violence must be confronted, not violently, or you become no better than the left. And when necessary, prosecuted. I'm talking about leftist brown shirt organizations. You know what I'm talking about. Leftist funded NGOs, the media mouthpieces who justify leftist terror, and the politicians who normalize hatred of Republicans. It's the only way to stop the murderous left from doing it again. Society, civil society, has to get back to civil dialogue. There appears to be an inversion of reality the left commonly shares. What is right is wrong. What is wrong is right. What is good is evil, and what is evil is good. The compass definitely needs a recalibration. Well, that's all for today, and thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please subscribe and hit that like button, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching 2 Cents Unfiltered.